Hey, we're live, everybody.
Good
Thomas and
morning.
Adam, we're live, and it's Friday morning. And I don't know about you guys, but we've got cold weather coming in this weekend. And so I am planning on hunkering in. I know, Thomas, it's never cold for you, but I'm planning on hunkering in. So, everybody, welcome to Digitize HQ. I have been excited all week for this conversation and for our guest. And so, before we jump into today's leaders must be social, I want to introduce our guest today. Adam, Richie, you want to tell everybody a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, good morning, guys. Adam Richie. I am the Chief Relationship Officer here at Purpose Point. Just quick background. I call myself a recovering engineer. I went to Western Michigan University for my undergrad in engineering and quickly tried to find a way out of engineering. So found myself in the business development world, running sales for a couple of manufacturing companies. So I've spent most of my career in the technical space, doing manufacturing, sales, and things of that nature. That's where I actually got to know Thomas. He came in and did some training for one of our teams. Through that journey, I kind of got to know this concept of leadership and culture development, and absolutely fell in love with it. So there was an opportunity that was afforded to me right during COVID to make a pivot in my career and lean into one of my passion projects, and here I am. So
very cool. And I think we're going to be talking a little bit about your passion project today, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Excellent. And Thomas, who doesn't need an introduction, but why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself?
Well, my introduction maybe just to clarify all the bad stuff and put the good stuff. I'm just kidding. So I am the Chief Revenue Officer of FunnelAmplified and a founder with Digitize HQ and a close partner with Brandon Lay. I had the opportunity to work with Adam a number of years back with one of his manufacturing opportunities back in that time frame, if I remember correctly. And not that I would ever drop names, but Romeo Rim.
Yes.
I love it.
Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah, so people know.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
And we spent some time together working on how digital and social media impacts manufacturing. And your positioning at that time is so interesting with today's conversation, right? Because you were in charge of positioning the CRM.
Yes.
At that time, and you were part of it.
Thomas, I almost got over that, and then you had to just go ahead and open that wound back up, and
That's classic, wasn't it, Adam?
What's that?
It was classic.
It was classic. Yes, it was a great learning experience. Let's put it that way.
All right. Well, let's keep the reminiscing going down the path of today's topics, guys. So, Adam, I'm going to start with you, and I know this is your passion play here, but our topic was today's leaders must be social. Why must today's leaders be social?
I think the biggest thing is positioning, right? And and here's the fun thing about this, right? We can define that word leader, right? A lot of times there's this paradigm that leaders are like, oh, I'm in a level of management, or I'm an executive somewhere. But at the end of the day, every person is a leader. Like if you have the opportunity to influence a life, which guess what? Walking down the street, you have an opportunity to influence a life. You are a leader, right? And you have one of two options. You can either influence them to the positive or influence them to the negative. Like there was a quote somewhere, or the other opportunities just don't influence them at all, right? Like just leave them be. And so the idea that every leader must be social is, I mean, it's critical because it gives you an opportunity as a leader to influence more and have a bigger impact. We call ROI here at Purpose Point return on impact, right? It's not return on investment, it's return on impact. So gives you a bigger platform.
Yeah. So, and I like that. I like that perception, or that even definition. of leader, especially when we read so much of the data that comes out of Gartner or McKinsey, and they talk about thought leader. And in a social world, Nikki's joined us. Love that. Everyone is a leader. So very true. Absolutely, yeah. Nikki. And that's what, when it comes into the corporate brand, personal brands, we all have the opportunity to have a voice now, which we didn't have in previous generations. And through that voice, you can lead, even if it's a microcosm of people, but it happens to be your geographic territory or with your named accounts or whatever it may be with customer success people or with HR people. You have the opportunity to have that voice and lead and make a big impact for yourself and your company.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah, that's cool. I love what you said. Thomas, you want to jump in?
Yeah, sure. Of course. So what I would add to that, and not that I'm ever short of words. It's not usually one of my problems. But what I would add to that is that today's leaders are missing the boat big time if they aren't able to build their own brand, their own personal brand, their own voice, and really put themselves out there. And as you say, Adam, everybody is a leader. And I would add to that the leadership teams need to lead by example, right? So you can't expect your teams to be out there and promoting and positive and having the kind of influence that you just spoke of, Adam, if you yourself are not doing that, right? And I wrote an article not that long ago this week, I believe, that spoke about how I see lots of people that are on social media but don't actually do or are active on social media, right? So they're there. They've got the postal stamp profile, I'll call it, but they don't engage and they don't connect. Well, it's such a missed opportunity. I mean, the immediate thing that comes to my mind of one of the best people to utilize it. What's the gentleman's name that runs and owns Gravy?
I don't.
Payroll company called Gravy.
Yeah, I don't remember his name.
Okay, I'll think of it. But
well, there's your point. There's part of your point right there.
I got to think of another name. So let's go to Elon Musk, right?
There you go.
Let's go to Tesla. He hasn't spent dime one since day one on any advertising because he never had to. Social media did all the work for him, right? And that was long before Tesla was known in the way that it is today. Remember, he built it from the ground up after selling PayPal. So he built that on the basis of his profile and his positioning and his messaging. And he continues that today, right? And that's what leaders need to do, right? Leaders need to be out front leading.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Well, and I would say, coming back to what Adam said, is let's be careful because everybody's a leader. Right. I think leadership in an organizational sense, I believe it's so important for the top leadership in an organization to be social because, just as being a parent, we want to say, do as I say, not as I do. Right. Why do we say that? Because we know that our actions speak louder than words. And if the leadership in an organization isn't consistently being social, what they're really speaking to the organization is, it's not really important. But in today's day and age, I mean, companies need, number one, people with social presence and sharing content and adding value. Those are the ones that buyers are connecting to and they win more deals. But number two is it's just that competitive advantage. You've got 200, 300, 1,000 people, 5,000 people that are all consistently sharing social messages. That amplifies and magnifies your brand quicker than anything that you can pay for. A lot cheaper too.
Oh yeah. Yeah. And I want to touch on that just really quick, because you talk about the competitive advantage, right? And in the space that we're in, because we do leadership and culture development, like to us, culture is a competitive advantage, right? And much like leaders being social and leading from the front, leading from example, one of the things that we talk about all the time, because we'll come into an organization and we'll redo their like mission, vision, values, right? Which we actually call purpose, why, and how. right? How are they showing up? And the thing is, if that becomes words on a wall, it's useless, right? And the same thing applies to social, right? If it's just like, hey, I'm just going to post about my product because I think that's what's going to sell it, well, guess what? That is useless, right? And the biggest key is, we talk about there's 3 phases, right? There's 2, 4, and with. You can either do, like when you talk about leadership development, you can either do that to your people, right? Hey, I hired this consultant. He's going to come in. He's going to teach all you how to be followers, right? So that's to them, right? For them is like, hey, I want to bring them along and do something for them, help them out a little bit, right? But it's still an us and them mentality, right? With is where the leader is the one that is in the trenches with them, right? It's, not to use current events, but it's the Ukraine president. That is a with leader, right? And social's no different. Whether you're talking about how you're growing and developing your people, or you're posting on social media, you have to be doing it with your people if you want that to be a part of the culture and a part of the how that we talk about. How is your organization showing up and fulfilling the purpose and the why that it's there? So you got me on a rant.
No, that's okay. Rants are totally accepted in Digitize HQ.
Good.
And Thomas, why don't you jump into that? Because I know you love to wave the culture banner as well, and its importance to all areas of an organization, but specifically in social.
Yeah, well, culture is the hardest single factor to change, right?
Yes.
There's nothing harder to change than culture. And the only way you're going to change it is to walk the walk. And by not walking the walk, you've actually created the wrong culture. And that's the challenge. But the amazing thing about leadership and using digital and social is it impacts every area of the business, right? Whether it be HR with respect to recruiting, retention, and all the key opportunities that exist there, or whether it touches on purchasing, or whether it touches on sales and marketing, inside sales, because all those areas are touched. So when you as a leader, no matter where you are in the organization relative to those areas, can incorporate and build that in, you're going to have impact in a way that you wouldn't otherwise, right? And HR is my favorite area when it comes to that. I know it sounds counterintuitive because I've got a very strong background in sales, but HR has the biggest impact, right? And one of the biggest challenges any company has today is recruiting. Now, they have a challenge because they need more people. Part of the reason they need more people is because they're all walking out the back door. Right?
Yeah, absolutely.
You're trying to get new ones in the front door when they're walking out the back door. And I'm not sure that you're achieving the end goal. And I worry, in fact, and worry is the wrong word. I'm watching like everybody else. If we're going to see a second wave of resignations as people are, and I don't want to use the word forced, but asked to come back to work and not given the flexibility in every case that they may be expecting, right? Yeah. And so we're not leading, and we're not giving we're not doing the things we said we might do. And I think, how would you respond to that, Adam?
Yeah, I think you're spot on, Thomas. And I think the biggest thing is, up until, and this isn't a new concept, right? Like let's talk about like COVID for a second, right? Like COVID exacerbated this, but this was going on. I mean, in 2019, I think it was Larry Fink. Do you know who that is from BlackRock? He got a whole bunch of CEOs together and said, hey, let's redefine the purpose of business, right? And they said, okay, well, now we're going to have this idea of stakeholders versus shareholders. Like they purpose exists to support stakeholders, and stakeholders are employees and clients and customers and their communities, and it's more of a holistic approach, right? So that was back in 2019. But the biggest change that's happened is the fact that up until 2018, 2017, people were trying to figure out how to fit life around their work. And now that's flipped over. People are now trying to say, how do I fit work around my life? And, you know, it's like we call that the talent currency shift, right? People used to change their time for money, right? You go to work for 40 hours and you get a paycheck for 40 hours, right? That currency is flipped over. People are now willing to trade their money for time because they want more joy and fulfillment and contribution in the work that they do. And they're willing to give up certain things for that. Right. You know, there's a whole plethora of statistics out there about the Great Resignation, and we call it the Great Awakening, right? People are kind of becoming awake to like, holy crap, I don't want to, you know, spend my entire life in a job that I don't like, and then recognize that I'm 55 and a half and looking to retirement. And, you know, oh, by the way, all the stress from my job is now giving me a heart disease, right? Like, it's like people are realizing that like I need to spend the best years of my life doing the best things of my life. And yeah, I mean, it's just the dynamic is totally different, and companies need to, you know, I noticed Nikki talks about on her little chat here about how people are gaining insight to company values, right? Employees or potential employees are now interviewing companies. It's no longer the other way around, right? They're like, hey, how do I research online? How do I figure out what this company's all about? How do I Google the CEO, Google my boss, my potential boss? What's he posting online? Is it something that I can align to? And if it's not, I'm going to go find somewhere else.
Or if it's not there, that speaks louder, just as loud, right? You go and you look 100%. And you're like, nobody's even sharing, nobody's talking. Like that speaks a lot of what the culture is.
Absolutely. I mean, I've made decisions on restaurants based on their website. Yeah. Right. Like, I mean, it may be as like mundane as possible, but like if I'm like in a place where I'm not used to, or I'm traveling or whatever, I Google like, and their website is either non-existent or garbage, I'm like, nah, I'll go to Chick-fil-A. So, you know, you're totally right, Brandon. It's if they're non-existent, that can almost be, well, I don't want to say it can be worse, but you know.
Well, I mean, I think it's becoming more and more where it is worse because our expectations are whether I mean, think about all of us as a consumer, like you just said, you make decisions on where to eat based on a website. Okay. What I heard there is your expectation is that a good restaurant would have a good website.
Yes.
And so if you look at a website or you look for a restaurant and they either don't have a website or they have a bad website, they both speak equally loud to you. And then you go to Chick-fil-A.
Right.
Right. As you said, which is never a wrong decision, right?
No, I mean, Chick-fil-A is never a wrong decision.
Yeah, I was talking this morning to Ashley at AAISP. For anyone listening that knows Ashley Gagliano, and I was sharing with her this time I was on a trip in Florida, and I was tired. It was a busy day, and instead of going out to eat that night, I went to Publix, the supermarket.
Yeah.
And I went to the deli and I ordered a sandwich. And then I went and I got a bag of chips. I got a pint of ice cream and I got a bottle of wine. And I went back to my room and I said, I'm done. And I didn't look at the Publix website, but that was my meal for the night.
There you go.
But, you know, I do think that we are, especially as this younger generation is coming into, you know, their business roles. Like I think about my oldest daughter, who's a senior in college. She's looking at companies, she's researching, she's interviewing, she's doing all that. I mean, she spent most of her life with this in her hand.
Mm-hmm.
Her normal routine is going to be to go search the company.
Oh yeah.
On her phone, which means she's going to go to Instagram, she's going to go to LinkedIn, she's going to go to Twitter. Mm-hmm. Maybe she'll go to Facebook, probably not. They know what Glassdoor is, so they're going to go to Glassdoor and they're going to do their research there.
Mm-hmm.
But they're also going to go and look and see what are the employees saying about their company, people that are there now. What do they talk about? What do they share? And I really think that if that's absent, even if they don't, like, even if my daughter doesn't think, oh, nobody's saying anything, I think the lack of of social messaging would speak to her, even if she's not consciously aware of it.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
because they're so aware of it. Go for it, Thomas. Sorry.
Yeah, no. I think those are all crazy relevant points, and the companies that aren't yet realizing the impact lose out. I had a discussion. It's actually in an article I wrote earlier as well with a young talented videographer, and he was telling me all this crazy. And he's freelance. And he doesn't want to work for a corporation. He likes doing his own thing and getting out there. And so he was telling me his experience, and some of them are, large corporations, and they're coming to realize how important social and digital is. And so he's being brought in to do a lot more work with videos, which ties in so nicely with what we're all talking about, right?
Yeah.
And the biggest question he gets asked, right, or the biggest opportunity he gets presented with is, hey, we want to create some videos. We want to become a human organization. Can you come on down and work with us? And so he comes on down, and they immediately put him in the boardroom. And all the executive leaders are walked in one at a time, sit there, get it right. Now you
let me button my shirt up.
and they totally missed it, right? Like just totally missed it, right? And I asked him, and do you try and help them? And he says, well, you can talk to them, you can tell them, but they're not listening, right? They're not getting the message.
Yeah.
But I mean, you need to get out of your boardrooms, get out of the building, right? And go out with your customers and meet with them in a coffee shop or wherever. It doesn't matter, but be a human being. That's
absolutely.
And that's what social does. And when you do that, culture comes with it.
Yeah.
Right?
Absolutely.
It's not the entire culture, but it's an important aspect of it.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. We have a client of ours that we're working with right now, and we were doing the same thing. We went in to do a corporate video, and they have this celebration that they do whenever they win a new client, right? And I thought it was awesome. Like, and everybody in the office gets excited, and everybody gets fired up, and they're kind of going through this process. And I'm like, we got to get this on video. And they're like, our clients don't want to see that, right? Like, that's so transactional. And I'm like, no, this makes you human. Like, this makes, like, why would you not want to share the celebration? Like, just because you're in a very stuffy space of employee benefits doesn't mean that you need to be, straight laced with a tie anymore. I mean, like, look, I'm in a flannel t-shirt and in a hat, right? Like, you caught me on Flannel Friday. This is what we do around the office on Fridays. We all wear flannel shirts, and because I don't have much up top, I put a hat on. Right?
That's awesome.
Like, but the thing is, to your point, Thomas, like, it is totally brought, and one of the blessings that came out of COVID was just that, right?
Yeah.
Where now you're in people's homes, where otherwise you never would have been. Right. You got like the cattail coming across like a shark fin. Right. And, the dogs barking in the background and the kids running around. I mean, it's just like it totally humanized us, even though we're in a virtual world, more so than I think we would have experienced otherwise.
Yeah.
So,
Adam, I think what you just said there is one of the most important points, that digital transformation was accelerated during COVID, because of what you just said right there.
Yeah.
It humanized all of us. And I think we all can remember pre-COVID, if for some reason you were working from home, your kid was sick, or, your car was at the mechanics or something, and you were home, you did everything you could to pretend like you weren't at home.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Right. We had backgrounds and all this stuff. And, if your kid sneezed, you're like, right. Because we did everything we could to pretend like I'm not at home. And now with COVID, it was like, oh yeah, that's my kid. That's my dog. The cat walks across. I mean, we've seen all the funny stuff as well.
Yeah.
And what I think that gave us the freedom, and I think especially inside of LinkedIn, is it started to give us the freedom to be human.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, I hear these conversations a lot. And I think I had somebody on my podcast, gosh, it's probably been 6 months ago, where she was a CMO that posted something about, I'm so excited to see all this personal human posting on LinkedIn so that we're all humans. You know, and I brought her on my podcast and said, tell me about that. Like, what are you talking about? And it's, for so long, I think LinkedIn was, we led with our title and we left our humanity hidden. And that shift is happening. And this is why I think it's so important. We've always networked with our humanity and left our title behind in order to develop enough of a relationship to earn the right to talk about business. What social media did is it flipped that for the worse, in my opinion. Through LinkedIn, people were able to just go straight in for the demo conversation. Hey, Adam, nice to meet you. I'm Brandon from FunnelAmplified. We're really awesome at what we do. Here's my brochure. And what time tomorrow at 30 minutes for a demo? Because we're, you know, and that's what people have done. And they just completely forgot. I think I scared Adam. Look at that. He hit his video because I got in his face.
I did it on purpose. I'm like, yeah, I'm out.
Like, I'm out. Exactly. And I think that the humanness that's starting to take place inside of social media, especially LinkedIn, and there are other people that are still, there's something that's like, LinkedIn isn't Facebook. Well, you know what? These are conversations I'd have if I was sitting across the dinner table with the prospect because I flew in and took them out to dinner. Right. Why shouldn't we have them in LinkedIn?
Yeah. And at the end of the day, like, the biggest thing that I think people confuse is that whether you're in B2B or B2C sales, right? It doesn't matter. People don't buy products from companies. They buy products from people, right? At the end, even if you're, you know, buying Chick-fil-A, right? I'm still giving my card or my money to a human usually. I mean, now they're trying to get that, you know, automated, which I'm not a huge fan of, but you're buying from a person. Right. And to your point, Brandon, until you've earned that right to talk about business, it's so important for that human connection. Right.
Yeah. So. And I mean, let's take Chick-fil-A as an example. And you know, my son works at Chick-fil-A. And I think
swear this is not sponsored by Chick-fil-A, right?
I know. Hold on. Let me go dip my chicken strip over here real quick in my Chick-fil-A sauce. We're not sponsored by Chick-fil-A. Yeah,
we actually had Deanne, who was the chief human resources officer from Chick-fil-A, on Davin's podcast. Yeah.
Oh, nice. Very cool.
So, yeah.
Well, here's my philosophy with Chick-fil-A, and I might make some people mad here, is their food's fine. Yeah. It's not phenomenal. It's fast food and it's good, but it's not like, oh my gosh. But they've created a culture of humanity.
Right.
And it's the little things. It's my pleasure, which makes a huge difference for people when you say, hey, thank you. And they go, my pleasure. It speaks a lot, even if people don't consciously realize it. And Chick-fil-A's success, I think, is because they demonstrate humanity. And what we can take from that is we need to be comfortable in demonstrating our humanity to the point that, Adam, I think I'm going to take up Flannel Fridays because that just sounds like a lot of fun.
It is. It's a blast. It's definitely worth it. I mean, flannel's a lot more comfortable than a dress shirt. So
I would ask you a question though, given that you do the leadership training and you do training in corporations at management levels and other levels as well.
Yeah.
When you see an organization that clearly is not yet, you know, getting the full picture and understanding the impact they can have culturally and otherwise, and you can identify either based upon what they've told you is the problem they want you to address, or what you've seen as being the problem that you in addition want to address. How do you speak to this topic of how digital, social, and, you know, being part of the bigger community online as a corporation and leaders for your teams, etc.? How do you speak to that in terms of what Purpose Point does?
Yeah, so we have 2 lanes of our business, right? We have our organizational development lane, and we have our media media lane, which we have a whole team that does website development and social media and all that stuff, right? And the reason that we do that is because we found a massive gap between those two worlds, right? Where we would come in and we would do culture change. We would start changing the language that was being said in the organization, creating a culture of servant leadership, or creating a culture of, one of our clients is creating a culture of caring is what they're kind of embracing, right? Well, then the problem was they weren't authentic then online, because none of the posts were about caring, or none of the posts are about servant leadership. It was just all about product, right? And I think the biggest question, so we have what we call our 5 Ps, right? Purpose, people, process, performance, profit. Right? Those 5 Ps are kind of the things that propel an organization forward. Most generally, organizations come to us and they're seeing pain in one of those P's, right? And then usually there's always a wing to another P that's like, okay, if you're having people problems, is it process driven or is it purpose driven, right? Are they not feeling like they matter, or is there a break in the process somewhere? So our focus is always on like digging a little deeper into, okay, what's really the root cause, kind of the 5 why analysis, right? Okay, why, right? And then once we start to uncover that onion, if you will, now we can start to rebuild and figure out what is it. And this is why we talk about purpose, why, and how. That how piece is, how is your company showing up online, in the world, in person, Flannel Friday, right? Like, how is your company showing up? And I love using the Seth Godin metaphor of, I could take a Nike symbol and slap it on a hotel, and you immediately have an image in your head of what that hotel looks like.
Yep.
Right? That is the lifestyle brand model. And it is driven by culture, right? So until you have, or at least are on a journey that says this is who we aspire to be and this is the culture that we want to have in our organization. Okay, now how does that show up online? How does that show up in the social channels? How does that show up on our website? One of the fun exercises that we do with a lot of our media clients is, all right, if you were to envision, digitize HQ as a person, that persona, what does that person like? What do they, how do they act? And then how do we change everything that we're doing to match that persona? Right? Because the last thing you want is, for example, I'm in here in a flannel shirt and a ball cap. If you went to Purpose Point's website right now and it was all like black and white and all of us had our headshots and a 3-piece suit, it's off brand, it's off character, right? Instead, you go there, it's probably a little elevated from a flannel shirt, but it's not like a, we're not going to pretend to be 3-piece suit consultants. Like, it's just not us, right? So again, that consistency is huge across platforms. So, but it all starts with that foundation of what is the culture, right? And that's why you talk about like mission statements and vision, and the core values are huge too, right?
Right. So does that give you the opportunity to take the leadership and give them a bit of a shake and say,
100%.
Carol, here's your current profile. Paul, here's your profile. John, I don't know what this is. Mike, and so on. That's kind of, I'm right with you. I mean, what you do is give that leadership team a shake,
right?
Because they're all going to nod their heads with us.
They're all gonna, of course. Yeah. Oh, yeah. That sounds good. Yeah.
That makes sense. Then they're going to go back to their office, close the door, and do the same thing. Right. So it really is about connecting, right? And I think that's what social media does, right? And what digital can do. And if it's worked properly through the leadership team, that's how you bleed out that culture.
Right. Yeah. We especially culture change, right? A culture change requires, like, hands down requires, if we don't have the leader on board, like, it requires extreme ownership at the top. If they don't have that, it's like, I'm out. Like, And actually one of our partners, I love his phrase, is that culture is local, right? So we say extreme ownership at the top. Now, if you're in an organization that's got 20,000 people and has satellite campuses all over the place, well, that culture is going to be local to that satellite campus, right? Like they're going to have a different dynamic than headquarters or, the company as a whole. So you can drive that culture even locally, right? It doesn't have to, when I say extreme ownership at the top, it doesn't necessarily have to be the CEO of the company. So it helps.
What do you do? And this is an interesting question, and every company is different. I know that, but I'm just curious how you attack this. What do you do with the how? So now you've got a team that we've identified the good, the bad, and the ugly.
Yeah.
And now we want to move them, and they've agreed that we need to do these. What's the how?
Sure. Yeah. So now are you talking about like the how that like the branding and the mission or the values piece of that? Or are you talking about like what it is that we do, how we walk them through?
How they start to walk the walk. So let's assume that the values are understood and the mission statement is agreed upon. But now, how do you get that out there and we all carry and walk the same way and wear flannel shirts on Fridays?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. And really the way that we do it, right. And, cause social and marketing and branding is one small piece of our business. How they treat their employees is the major piece of our business.
Okay.
And what we do is all of our stuff is foundational, is executive coaching, right? Okay. So most of our engagements, with the exception of just the ones that we're doing websites for, which we try to pick those few and far between, all have this layer of coaching, right? And we talk about, I call them the 3 C's. It's the confidence, competence, and capacity, right? So does this person that I'm coaching, do they have the competence, right? Are they smart? Are they smart enough? Like, do they have the skills that they need to either lead this person well or, use LinkedIn, use social media, right? That's a competence thing. Okay. Do they have the confidence? Are they confident in their abilities? And then do they have the capacity for it? And when I talk about capacity, that isn't necessarily like time capacity. I mean, that's one factor of it. But capacity is also like, what other distractions do they have in their life that may be keeping them? What self-limiting beliefs are keeping them from posting online, right? Like, there's a lot of people out there that one of the biggest hangups that they have from posting online or waving their company flag is they're like, I don't know how my family's going to react. Right? Am I going to feel inauthentic? Right? So there's a lot of self-limiting beliefs that we've got a couple of assessments that we'll take people through to kind of get them out of their shell a little bit and say, okay, this is how you need to start showing up and start communicating, right? Because anytime you're changing culture, you're changing language. And so we start talking a certain way and using certain words, and which is exactly why mission, vision, values, or the purpose, why, and how is so important, because those words that are chosen are very purposeful to be and need to be replicated as many times as often, right? And Lencioni calls it over communicate clarity. So it's, like I said, it's all layered in coaching. And then that gives us the opportunity to kind of say, okay, how are things going? Right. And then what do we need to do between now and next time we meet, so that you're communicating with your team well, you're getting out of this shell that you're in, and you're able to kind of step into, into who you've been made to be and how you're showing up. Right. So, yeah. And then, the other piece of that is like, after we've gotten through a few coaching sessions, we start layering in these workshops. Right. So, whether it be a leadership development workshop, a workshop on trust, or, even a marketing workshop, like, hey, well, let's bring the whole team together and say, okay, how do we want to show up? Right. How do we want to do this? So our biggest thing is, once you've built a foundation of vulnerability-based trust amongst the team, now they can talk about anything. right? So we always usually start there.
Hmm.
That and getting people out of their own head.
Well, and you've said it repeatedly, getting people out of their box, right?
Yeah.
And it's hard. And I'm no different than anybody else. Recently, I started doing some videos. It took me forever to get there, Adam.
Yeah.
I'm uncomfortable doing that in terms of videos and putting them out there. They just never turn out. I'm worried about, my daughters get on my case because I'm a boomer already, right? So I'm always worried about how that's going to come across. But I got out of the box. I did it. And how do you get people out of the box? You made a really interesting comment there with respect to getting people to share each other's good, bad, and ugly, and actually be vulnerable and work together with a team. Well, that's what we're doing here right now.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And that really is the trick. And I always tell people, if you want to talk to your best friends or one of the parents that you know well, or something in your personal life, what do? You get them on Facebook Messenger or WhatsApp, or you text them.
Sure.
Do you email your best friend?
Not usually. I did the other day, but it was totally unrelated topic.
Did you forward him a picture of your flannel for the day?
No, I did not. No. It was funny, Thomas, you were laughing about like the video thing. Like, I don't know if you saw my video from Notre Dame. So we were at Notre Dame, which is we're doing our Purpose Summit in May.
You got to tell us more about that.
Yeah, I will. Mm-hmm. Have you ever been to Notre Dame's campus?
I have not.
It is a very, very special place. And I say that I have no like football rivalry ties to any of the other rivalries. So like I say that just because it's a very special place. Like, football aside. But anyway, I posted a video from Notre Dame, kind of inviting people to it. It took me like 17 takes. For that reason, Thomas. Like, it took me way too many. I was like, this is stupid. Like,
but what? Your first take was probably the best one.
Oh yeah, probably, yeah. But here's the thing: let me just make one point real quick, Brandon, and then I'll let you jump in. Is that everybody has a message that somebody needs to hear, right? And if you don't step into that. And the beautiful thing is everybody has their own experiences and their own paradigms, right? Yeah. They've seen and heard and done things that nobody else has, right? In that order. And if you don't step into that and say, I have something to share, I need to say it, then somebody's not going to be able to hear that, right? So it's kind of a responsibility, if you will, to be human and to share that, right? So anyway,
I'm writing a bunch of I don't even remember. I'm writing a bunch of notes. Well, you know what I was going to say when you're talking about 17 takes to create your video.
I probably exaggerated a little bit, but
yeah, it was 35.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah.
We don't feel, how do I say it? I like to reinforce with our customers, our students that we train in social is, look, you're totally comfortable in a face-to-face environment to say something and go, oh, wait, no, that's not what I meant. What I meant to say was this. That's very organic. It's very authentic. It's very real. It's very human. Mm-hmm. But for some reason with the internet and video, and because everything, this is my big soap operas, right? The mistake we made with the internet was we gave it to the marketing department. We'll just leave it there. And it became polished and perfect.
Yes. Yeah.
Right. And the humans got pushed to the back. And so we've got this culture of thinking that our videos need to be perfect and polished and the right hex code and all these things. And so we do things like do 17 takes on a video from our phone, and we lose some of it. And I haven't seen this video and I'm not trying to say anything, but you probably lost a little bit of that enthusiasm, that organic awe that you had over the campus and transmitting that to your audience because you did 7 or 8 takes.
Could have, yeah.
And that authenticity, that organicness was missing. And that's what makes us human.
Yeah, absolutely. It's funny. Like one of the posts, one of my more recent posts that got some crazy engagement. And I wouldn't say crazy. It got a lot more engagement than I usually get. Let's go that route. Like you guys will probably be like, oh, that's nothing. But it was this one, which I posted a picture of my hat and a stack of books.
I didn't see that one.
And I mean, it got, for me, like anything over 1,000 views is awesome, right? So this has got 1,800 views, 10 comments, and 27 engagements, right? But the cool part about it is I talked about in the post, and you'll have to go in and read it, but those stack of books ended up on my desk somehow, right? Most generally, what we would do around here, like Brandon said, we gave it to the marketing department, right? Like I would arrange the books in a certain order and have certain authors that I wanted to highlight and put my hat on top of it and frame it up. And I was like, I'm just going to take a picture of the way it ended up, right? Like, I don't know how some of them got there, but they got there. And so it was.
I'm looking at your post now, and I'm going through the books, and yeah. You did stage the Purpose Point pin very well, though. At least, the marketing department will be happy with that.
Oh, I did. Look at that. I didn't stage that. I promise you, I didn't stage any of that. I took my hat off and I put it on the stack of books, and I was like, oh, photo op.
Yeah, I think it's great. Well, see, and it doesn't matter if it was 1,800 views or 18,000 views for you.
Right.
What that demonstrates, and this is a conversation Thomas and I have been having lately, and I pushed Thomas a little bit on, is I think that humanity piece that we were talking about a little bit earlier, being more human, those types of posts are more highly engaged, and we have data to demonstrate it. We have a ton of data that demonstrates it. But the reason they're more engaged is because we're all human.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And I think, like the Great Resignation, and Adam, what you were saying, that people are unwilling now to trade their time for money. They don't want to be 55 years old and go, gosh, my kids hate me. My health is in shambles. And I have a gold watch to demonstrate that I worked this hard for all these years. I think the same thing's happening in social. We're looking to connect with human beings. Yeah. And, oh, yes, you can also help me with this. That facade of leading with our title and portraying ourselves as this spit polished, perfect executive is going away.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why posts like this, I pulled it up over here, are so impactful. And one of my most engaged posts over the last 6 months or so was when a 10-year-old boy on his dirt bike drove up our driveway, and I heard a motorcycle, and I'm like, of our 5 kids, who's coming to our house on a motorcycle, or who are they coming for? And I'm going through all my daughters, and it's a 10-year-old boy that pulls up his visor and he goes, "Hi, Mr. Lee, can Zoe, our 8-year-old daughter at the time, can she come out and play?" And I started cracking up because I'm like, I didn't expect a boy on a motorcycle coming for my daughter for at least, 10 more years, right? Yeah. And I snapped a picture of it and I told the story, and it's like 70,000 views and several hundred. Why? Because everybody could relate with it at some, not everybody, but so many people could relate with it. And I had a CMO of a bank, like a regional big player bank, commented on it. And I commented back. And then I sent her a message, and she's like, "Oh my gosh, I showed my husband, and we have 2 daughters, and we bonded over being parents."
Awesome.
And developed a relationship with somebody. Like, I didn't try and sell her anything. I just, enjoyed the moment of being human with another parent. And that's why things like your book, your stack of books post are so valuable. It's Thomas, be more human.
Did you get that subtle?
I did. Yeah, I did.
Yeah,
I feel like I'm treading on something very thin here.
Yeah, I'm about as subtle as a Mack truck driving down a neighborhood.
Just wearing this shirt is a big step for me. I was trained in the Xerox days, right? So not only did you have a white shirt, but if you put it on the floor, it would stand on its own. There was so much starch. Right? Like, I'm not kidding you. My daughters will tell you. I'd use a whole can on the shirt, but so for me to be where I'm at, I consider not too bad, but there's still more for me to do. Yeah. Right. And that's true for everybody. I don't care who you are. Right. There's a better way for you to be yourself. Right. And to project that. And Brandon's 100% right. I'm not sure when I'm going to get all the way to there, but I'm working on it. And that's the point. I will do that. I will force myself into that position. Right. And that's where everybody needs to do the same thing. Yeah. Right. And the example we gave earlier with respect to, do you email your best friend to see if they want to come over for a beer? Right. Or you want to meet for a beer, whatever the case may be. You don't do that. Yeah. Well, why would you do that with your best customer or one of your top employees or whatever the case may be? You're going to reach out and say, hey, let's go do this. Right. And what customers are going to react like people, because guess what? They're people, right? and relationship, people say all the time, social media doesn't work because you can't have relationships. Right? Well, I don't know, but I think we are developing relationships right here, right now in this moment. Absolutely. Right? And Zoom and all these things have really changed that. And this is all part of it. Yeah. Right. I mean, how many phone calls, like actual phone calls, and I don't mean cold calls or anything like that, just phone calls, do you actually get on a daily basis? Either one of you or both? Unless it's from my wife, I would say probably very little. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So.
My spam filter on my phone now does such a great job that the only calls I was really getting were spam calls for a lot, at least my personal phone. And I get more text messages than anything, my kids, my wife, everybody. Right. I mean, when you really think about it, and then how many Zoom sessions do you have? How many conversations like this do you have? And when you do connect with somebody and start to develop that, what's the first thing you want to do? You want to get them in a Zoom session, and likewise. Yeah. Absolutely. Before Nikki's comment came in and I put it up there, I was gonna say, like, social doesn't work. We've developed, Nikki, a relationship, a friendship with Nikki over the last several weeks. We've been on a call with her, but she's popped into our Friday Digitize HQs events several times now. Awesome. And I feel like I know more about Nikki. I know about the way she thinks. I know about her, the way she thinks about her business and her role, because she's come on here and she's commented. And because of this social environment or this digital environment that happens to be streaming through social media, I pretty much know that if I messaged Nikki after this on LinkedIn and said, hey, thanks for contributing, we would chat. Awesome. Right? That's the value of digital and social. And if I was doing that with Nikki in real life, well, number one, she's in South Africa, and it'd be a really, really long flight for me. And it probably, would most likely not happen ever unless, my wife wanted to go on safari again or something like that. Or we met at a conference. But those are relationships that can be built quick, deep, and have true value in a very short period of time. Yeah. So, awesome. Like today, I mean, Adam, I wrote a bunch of notes, and I need to figure out 2 more P's because I wasn't taking notes when you went through your P's. But I loved your C's of confidence and competence and capacity. And of course, the way I'm thinking, well, number one, I felt like I was in my John Maxwell groups. I become a certified leadership coach with John Maxwell like 6, 7, 8 years ago, whatever it's been. Yeah. And I love this topic, but I've also been thinking everything you were sharing. I'm like, how do we apply this into coaching our clients around social media? Mm-hmm. One thing you said that I thought was so spot on was that limiting beliefs or the mindset around their own value into the industry or into social, or what are people going to think, I think you're spot on. Like, that's the biggest detriment to people's ability to develop their personal brand.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. It always is, right?
Yeah.
So,
okay. So purpose, process, profit.
Purpose, people.
Duh.
Process, performance, profit.
Performance.
Yeah.
The two I should have known right away, but
so real quick, because I know we only got 5 minutes, but those 5 P's actually came from a keynote that Davin Silvano, our founder, was giving back in like 2017, and kind of the founding purpose point of Purpose Point, and that every company starts with a purpose. They then start inviting people along that journey. Said, hey, come join me. I need some help, right? Then they start putting the processes in place to support the people. Then they start measuring performance against the process. And then eventually they start turning a profit. Well, all too often what happens is too many companies shift to the right and start focusing on profit and performance and forget about the purpose and the people that they brought along the journey. So that's our mission that we're on, is refocusing people and companies back to the purpose and the people that they are and should be. So
that's awesome.
Yep.
I love that framework.
Which is a quick shameless plug, which is why we're doing the Purpose Summit in May of 2022 here. So
tell us about it.
We have 30 speakers, all that are on this mission to champion business as a force for good, right? So whether they be a company of what good looks like, this side, people like Lippert Components and WD-40 and others, or they are thought leaders in this space, right? Of, hey, if you pour into your people, the process and performance and profit come with it, right? So we started the Purpose Summit 2019, had 2 of them planned in 2020, and then COVID had other plans for us, so we pushed it to 2021. We went from a repurposed school building in downtown Detroit to an old theater in Mount Clemens, Michigan, and now we're at the University of Notre Dame. So it is growing exponentially, and for anybody and yourselves are listening, I will give you my personal discount code if you want to save yourself $100, which is Richie 100 last name, which is right there. So Richie 100, save you $100 on it. Go to thepurposesummit.com. It's filling up quick. So yeah, you don't want to miss it. It's going to be good. So.
Well, I want to leave everybody with one last thought, if I could.
Yeah.
I want everybody that's watching this and yet to watch this, because we get a lot more people watching these later than we do necessarily live. But if you're watching this, and when you watch this, I want you to go to your company and your personal profiles on social media. And I don't care where they are. If they're on Instagram, Twitter, LinkedIn, wherever they are, and tell yourself and ask yourself, are they promoting the message that you want to promote as a company and the culture you want to build as a company? And if the answer is yes, congratulations. Good for you. If the answer is no, then now you need to take steps to deal with that.
Yep, absolutely.
That's my message.
I love it.
Yeah. Well, there you go. I put that on there, Adam. I tagged you, the Purpose Summit. There's the link, everybody, to their LinkedIn page and the code. And then there's the URL as well. So, hey, Adam, and Thomas, not to leave you out, thank you so much. Adam, I mean, I really enjoyed. I was like, I had my CEO hat on. I was writing a bunch of notes on the culture part that I really, really enjoyed. And so, Adam, thank you so much for joining us today. Would you come back and join us again sometime? I think it'd be great.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, I'd love to. It was a good conversation. And honestly, if anybody watching this wants to connect with me on LinkedIn, just please don't try to sell me in the first DM, because I'm going to immediately reject your conversation. So
what if I wait to the second one? Can I try and sell you on the second one?
No, because I could read right through that stuff.
Awesome. Awesome.
So no, it was
Tom,
great being on here with you guys.
Thanks. Thomas, you want to wrap us up?
Yeah, I just want to thank everybody for joining us. It was a great conversation. I really think we need to have a discussion about bringing flannel in on a regular basis, because it just changes the whole dynamic. You know, the only thing missing is a roll of duct tape somewhere.
There actually was one right here.
This was excellent, and we could do this all day. And thank you so much for taking the time. Adam,
thank you guys.
We really appreciate it, and thank you, Brandon. Wonderful job as always.
Yeah. No, I appreciate you guys doing this and sharing the message that you guys are. So appreciate you both.
All right, thank you.
All right, everyone's grateful. All right, everybody, happy Friday. Have a wonderful weekend, and we will see you next Friday on Digitize HQ.
Thank you.
So long, everybody.